Hello, it's Amy with Just Say This, which is the podcast you're listening to if you're listening to this, and of course, birds and bees and kids. Welcome to my quick little episode about how to talk to kids about crushes. I love having a crush. Crushes are great, and they can also be devastating, as you may know. I've had crushes on people like, we'll just call him RH. When I was little, from the time I was kindergarten, I think we got married until I was in high school. He is not a particularly pleasant person. And as an adult, I am still baffled why I found him so attractive in a crushing way. And then, of course, as an adult, I've had crushes on somebody named MS and somebody else named another name. Can't remember. Anyway, so crushing is a part of life. Of course, not for every human. Not everybody is like me and a terminal crusher. But your kids need to know what they are. A, because they will probably have them, and B, because they are going to be around people who are having them and may pressure them about crushes. Okay, so let's just talk about what a crush is. When a crush is a intense interest in somebody, usually there's a romantic feeling behind it. Sometimes not, that's different. There's usually romance behind it. You're interested in having some kind of relationship with that person. And one of the things about crushes is that it's an idealized version of the person you have a crush on. See my first crush. You have this belief about them and this experience of them, mostly in your head, about who they are and what they're like. And this leads to pretty strong romantic feelings. About 20% of the time, the feelings are not returned. So your kids should know that. So that's a crush. When you're in a real relationship, you know the person, you have a friendship, you understand them, you know their quirks, you can fart around them, right? You have this real life relationship. So crushes are kind of in your head. Real relationships are in, frankly, real life. So the thing about crushes is that they can be so much fun to have those feelings. Lots of people like to talk about their crushes. Some people are really quiet about their crushes. Milo would not tell me about his crushes. I find that very frustrating. To this day, he will not tell me who he had a crush on in middle school. It's one of the problems in our relationship now that he's 25, as you can probably imagine. Very frustrating. So some kids will be open, some kids won't be open. And again, also just don't assume they will have crushes, but pretty, high chance that they will. In my other episode, I talk about neurodivergence and crushing because they have different needs and need some different information. Anyway, so crushing. So a couple things about it is that lots of kids will talk about their crushes. They will push people into communicating with a crush. When the person who's doing the crushing doesn't want to do that necessarily, they're shy, they feel embarrassed. And so also, the other thing that can happen is that kids can kind of be like, you should have a crush on that person, and then kind of make it up or tell someone so and so has a crush on you, which may all sound very familiar to you. Anyway, so talking about that kind of crushing pressure, talking about the fundamental, when you're in a relationship, that the fundamental basis is a friendship, and that crushing can lead to friendship, but just to be like a little bit mindful that it's, again, not really real. So I say that, but also, that, and you should mention it to them, but you should never, discount, or I don't know if that's the right word, like that they have these strong feelings. It's very insulting. It's also condescending. So just being mindful of that when you're interacting with your kid and they're willing to talk with you about their crushes. I personally do not know what that is like. So saying things like, tell me more, why you like the person. Oh yeah, you think they're cute, what else do you like about them? And they'll get them to just talk a little bit about that. You can ask, especially if they're younger and they're talking with you about a crush, if they'd like to hang out with that person, have a play date, whatever, see what they do with that. Sometimes they will say yes, and most of the time they will say no, depending on how old they are. If your kid's a teenager and they're having a crush, this is where stuff gets really devastating because, as I said at the top, 20% of the time it's not reciprocated. God. It's not reciprocated, which can be really hard and heartbreaking. So being ready to be there for them if it really, comes out that the crush is not returned. And then the other thing is that crushes go away. They fade. This is one of the ways you know they're not a real relationship. Again, be careful about how you use that language. So they do go away. My crush on that person lasted a really, really inordinately long time. Maybe it's because we got married when we were 4 or 5 and I just never recovered. So one other thing, if you have littler kids that are having a relationship, a romantic relationship, like 5-year-olds, and they love each other and they are dating, 5-year-old dating, be really careful about the language you use with them. Please don't say things like, oh, you're so cute, you're going to get married. That kind of language is we're just putting kids in a box that they do not need to be in at 5. So again, back to that, what do you like about that person? Do you want them to come over for a play date? That is a better space to stay in. And remember, the core of a real healthy relationship is friendship, right? So really focusing on that. Okay, there's some crush and talk. If you're a commenter and there's some place to make comments and all of this, maybe you're watching the YouTube. How were your first crushes? Devastating? Fabulous? Did it turn into real romance? Happy to know that. And if your kids will talk to you, please tell me that as well, because of course I'm just dying to know who they're crushing on. Okay, finally, if you need more from me, birdsandbeesandkids.com. There are tons of resources there. One I want to highlight is my Birds and Bees Solution Center, and it is a library of all things sex talk, so different categories of things, puberty, consent, etc. Really short little videos about different topics. Orgasm, sex for pleasure, that kind of thing. And then a lot of other resources. So check that out. You can find it on my website, birdsandbeesandkids.com. Of course, like and share because the world needs more help and adults need more help talking with their kids about all kinds of things. Okay, I will see you later. Oh, also, if you have a topic you want help with, please tell me. You can email me. It's amy@birdsandbeesandkids.com. Okay, thanks. Good luck. You can do this.